In this video, I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks to sharpening a knife with a portable sharpener. It's something that I struggled with for a really long time, so if you have also struggled with this, I can relate, and hopefully some of these tips and tricks will help you unlock this skill. In this video, I'll be using the whole enchilada, which is a sharpener I make and sell, but you can use any portable sharpener. You'll just need some sort of abrasive and a leather strop. You could even glue some sandpaper to a board, glue some leather to a board. This will work. When we're using a portable sharpener, we're looking for a working edge. We're not looking for mirror polish, nth degree sharpness. That's an unreasonable expectation to get from a handheld sharpener. Having said that, depending on what your use case is, if you want a toothier edge, if you want a smoother edge, that's going to dictate what grit you use in your abrasive. What we cover in this video will be applicable to all the grits. Whatever sharpener, whatever grit you decide to choose, these principles still hold true. Before we get to actually sharpening, we need to discuss diagnostic tools. How do we know when our edge is actually sharp? How do we know when it's dull, or where it's dull along the edge? The first test that I like to use is the thumbnail test. A lot of people will hold their thumb at an angle and drop the knife on it to see if it slides. I like to just gently brush that nail with the edge, and you can feel the resistance, or if it's dull, you'll feel it slide and it won't catch at all. You'll actually get a few thumbnail shavings off of that. But with practice and with a lot of reps, you'll start to feel, oh, that's what a dull edge feels like, and that's what a sharp edge feels like. I like the thumbnail method a lot. You always have your thumbnail on you. It doesn't require any extra accessory, and you can get a lot of information back because you're feeling the edge through the hand that's holding the knife and through the finger that you're scraping. The next diagnostic tool we can use is paper. You'll see this a lot. The paper cut test is a very common test. And a lot of what you're doing in this test is listening to that sound. You can hear that this one cuts a lot more jagged through the paper than this one right here. I just took this knife to a ceramic block, so we now have a very dull edge, and wipe off that stone dust. You can see that you can use light. It'll reflect off of those flat spots. If you have a really sharp edge, you won't see any of this reflection along here. So if you see this reflection, you know you have a fair amount of work to do. Now that we have our diagnostic tools, we can actually get to sharpening. Sharpening is simple, but not easy. It's only 2 steps. Step 1 is to make your burr, and step 2 is to remove your burr. In step 1, we're going to use an abrasive material to reach our apex. Once we've reached our apex by removing steel, that steel is going to curl over and create our burr. In our second step, we're going to use our leather strop to remove that burr, revealing our very sharp edge. There's a few different ways you can move the knife along the stone to remove this steel. You can push the blade into the stone like this. You can pull the blade away from the stone like that, or you can even move in little circles like this. What matters is that you remove steel and keep your angle consistent. You put your blade against that stone and slowly rock it, you'll see the shadow disappear. And right as that shadow disappears, that's the angle you need to sharpen at. Once you have that going, basically it's just smooth repetitions with light to medium pressure. As you can see, I'm actually working the edge in 2 sections. I start at the tip, then go about towards the center of the blade, then start at the base of the edge, and go towards about the center of the blade. That is something I picked up. It helps me maintain a little more control, especially with an edge that's curved like this cuttlefish. I like to pull the edge as opposed to push the edge into the stone. This is for a couple reasons. One, for safety, I'm not pushing a blade towards me. You know, if that blade were to slip, I can potentially cut myself. So I'm pulling that spine towards me, and then I'm pushing that spine away from me. So one is safety. The other reason is when I go to my second step, which is the leather strop, I'm going to use that pulling motion. Because if you push along the strop, you're just going to cut the leather. So this way I only have to memorize one way of doing it. So I can get really good at holding that angle consistent this one way, and it works for both my diamond stone and my strop. One of the very best pieces of advice I can give you is to use a strop. If you don't have one, get one. It can just be a piece of leather glued to a piece of wood. That's fine. If you haven't used a strop before, it feels like magic. It will not only remove your burr once you sharpen your knife, it will preserve your edge for a really long time in between sharpening. I'm talking if I use my knife in a day, I'm usually stropping it that same day. It's the same reason that barbers use straight razors, use strops on straight razors all the time. They keep that blade razor sharp. So it's not very hard. All you need to do is sharpen, like so. Find your edge and then pull the knife with light to medium pressure along that leather strop. You can apply some rouge, which is like a polishing compound, to that leather as well. But this simple action right here will preserve your edge for a really long time. Do it, trust me. While we're on the topic of stropping, when you've created your burr, you can feel it with your finger. You'll be able to feel that burr on one side. You can run your thumb along there, just like that. You'll be able to feel your burr on one side. So say you've sharpened on this side of the blade, your burr is going to be on the opposite side of the blade. You'll feel it as you run your finger along there. To remove it, just go to your strop like normal. Sometimes your burr can be a little bit stubborn, so you can run your blade along a piece of wood like that. That goes a long way to helping remove that burr. Sometimes your burr can just kind of flip from side to side without actually being removed. So the wood trick is super helpful. So I go, strop, wood, strop, and then you'll usually be able to feel it with your thumbnail test. Feel, oh yeah, now I've removed that burr and I have my razor sharp edge. There are a couple different types of edges. We have our straight flat ground, we have our hollow or concave, and we have our convex. Most of the time when you get a new knife, it's going to be one of these two edges right here. But when I'm hand sharpening, I go for a convex grind. One, I'm not perfect, so even if you try and achieve this, you're probably going to end up with something like this. And a convex edge can be very nice and usable. We're talking about a working edge here too. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be a mirror. So a convex is a great way to go. You just want to be sure not to overdo that curve and blunt your edge. When it comes to sharpening axes or tomahawks, it can be a little bit difficult, especially if this is a fairly light tomahawk. So it's not super hard to move it. If you wanted to do a regular sharpening, just like you would a knife, where you're moving the knife along the sharpener, you can do that with a lighter tomahawk. But with some heavier axes, that gets a little bit more difficult. So it's useful to keep the axe still and move the sharpener along the edge, because your sharpener is lighter than the tool. This is a really good way to do it. You can strop in a similar way. Just make sure you go away from that edge so you don't cut your leather. But really, it's going to be up to you, personal preference there. I do like to hold the axe still, even if it is a lighter axe like this. It just seems to work a little bit better. And you can come in and look at this side right here to see that shadow, to know when you've hit that angle you need to sharpen at. And then for whatever reason, I like to do little circles with the axes. It seems to make sense. Seems to flow for me. So that's sharpening a tomahawk. This is Schism. Sharpening, like any skill, takes practice, and the best advice I can give you is to practice with knives you're not afraid to mess up, so you can fail and learn without messing up some knives you really care about. Some good options are the Sword Peasant. It's a friction folder with a high carbon steel blade. High carbon steel is a little bit easier to sharpen than stainless steel, so that's a really good knife to learn on. These are super cheap, along with any Open L. Fantastic knives. These are made in France. These are made in New Zealand. But pick a system that works for you. Grab some inexpensive knives. Paring knives are a great thing to practice on. They're small. They're in your kitchen. You use them all the time anyways. Get your reps in with those knives so that when you go to sharpen the knife you care about, you're confident in your skills. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Yeah. Seriously, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope some of these tips and tricks help you acquire the skill of sharpening by hand so you can sharpen your knife wherever you are. Kind of a funny thing. These are the notes that I took on this one video. So I have literally pages of notes for just this one video, and I had to do an entire reshoot. So this is the second time I filmed this video. But I'm like sharpening. It takes time to get good at this whole video thing. I'm committed to getting better at it, so if you want to stick around, hopefully these videos get much better than this over time. And like always, if you have something that you'd like me to make a video on, drop in the comments. Thanks. They're not my friends yet, but they will be.